Hello and welcome to this lesson on interpreting pie charts. So you can see two pictures of pie charts here in front of you, and that is what a pie chart looks like. So we're going to be looking at interpreting these today, and then tomorrow you're going to be having a go at drawing them. So today we're just going to be looking at what they tell us. But before we get going on that, some really important number crunching that you need to be able to do before you can approach pie chart questions. So I'd just like you to pause the video for a second, have a go at these questions. And you can have a go at these in your red squared exercise books or just on a bit of paper you might have. And then restart the video when you're ready to see the answers. Okay, so number one says work out half of 30. Now you can probably do this in your head, but I just want to show you a picture of a cake or a pizza or whatever you like to see this as. And you can see here that I've split it into halves. Now why have I done this? Yes, this question is quite easy, half of 30, but as we move through this lesson today, you're going to be having to find out different fractions of amounts. And it's really important that you have some kind of visual idea of how to do this. So work out half of 30. So imagine the whole cake or pizza represents 30. Well, what number do I have to put in each section or each half to make it add up to 30? Well, I'd have to put 15 in each half to make it all add up to 30. So half of 30 is 15. Number two, work out a quarter of 400. Well, again, I'm going to think about the whole cake or pizza being 400, and what number would I have to put in each section to make it add up to 400? Well, I'd have to put in 100 into each section to make it add up to 400. So therefore, what is 1/4 of 400? It's just 100. And remember, whatever number goes into each section has to be exactly the same, remember, as well. So you can hear I've split 30 into two equal numbers to give me a half of 30, which is 15. Here I've split 400 into four equal numbers to get my 1/4 of 400. Number three, work out a third of 12. Well, I'm going to split my cake or pizza into thirds now. And what number do I have to put in each section to make this add up to 12? I've got to put 4 in each section. So 4, 8, 12. So 1/3 of 12 is equal to 4. The final question says work out 10% of 60. Well, hopefully you remember that finding 10% of a number, you divide that number by 10. And that's exactly the same as basically splitting the cake or pie into 10. So what number would I have to put into each slice to make this add up to 60? Well, I'd have to put 6 in each slice. 6, 12, 18, 24, 30, 36, 42, 48, 54, 60. So what's 10%? Well, 10%, remember, is the same as 1/10. 10% is just 1/10. That's the percentage and fraction equivalent. So 10% of 60 is just 6. And actually, let's just have a quick look back at what the percentage equivalents are of each of these. Remember, a half is equivalent to 50%. And this one's going to be really important today. A quarter this comes up in your worksheet, a quarter is equivalent to 25%. So that's really important, worth bearing in mind. Okay, now that we've looked at a couple of those number crunching aspects, now we can get on to some pie charts. So example number 1 says, Miss Cook did a survey of the type of pet Year 6 had. The results are shown in the table. Colour in the pie chart to show the results. So I did a survey, and I found that 40% of children in Year 6 had a dog, 30% had a cat, 10% had a fish, 15% had a horse, and 5% had other. That might include different types of pets, or it might include no pets. So that's just that general broad category other into which other people could go if one of these 4 options didn't apply to them. Okay, it says I've got to colour the pie chart to show the results. Well, what's my pie chart split into? It's split into 10 sections. That means that each section is 10%. Each one of these sections is 10%. Okay, well that makes it quite nice and straightforward. So I can colour in 4 sections to represent dog. So let's do that. That's my 4 sections representing my 40% pupils who had a dog. How many sections do I have to colour for cats? 3. 10%, 20%, 30%. Fish, just 1, 10%. Now, horse, 15%, and other is 5%. Well, that's okay. I can just split one of these in half, because if this is 10%, I can split it in half to give me 5%. So I'm now going to colour in 15% for horse, so 1 section plus another section, and then other, I'm just going to colour this one in purple for the 5% of other. And really importantly, you need a key. Okay, here's my key. So it colour codes what the different parts of the pie chart are. Okay, I'm just going to add a little bit to this question. This is what you have to do in a couple of your questions on your worksheet, but I'm just going to add in a little bit now because this is going to help you with the final question in your worksheet, and it's also going to help you with pie charts tomorrow and indeed in the future. So at the moment we don't know how many people were in this survey. I've just told you that I did a survey and I found out that 40% of children in Year 6 had a dog. But 40% doesn't mean 40 pupils, it just means 40% of the pupils. So I need to remind myself how many pupils there are in Year 6. Well, there are 40 children in Year 6 and they all took part in this survey. Okay, so how many children have a dog? Well, this means I need to find out 40% of 40. Well, let's go back to our technique that we had in the starter. And I had to ask myself, what number would I put into each section so that it all added up to 40? Well, it's basically going to be 40 divided by 10. So there's 4 in this section, 8, 12, 16, 20, 24, 28, 32, 36, and then there's going to be 2 in each part here. So how many children have a dog? Well, 40%, so 10% remember is 4, so 40% is 4 lots of 4, which is 16. And how many have a horse? Well, let's have a look over here. A horse, which is in green. 4 plus 2 is 6. And that's going to be really helpful for one of the questions on your worksheet and tomorrow's lesson. Now, up to now, we've been looking at pie charts in terms of percentages, but pie charts are actually a full turn, aren't they? They're a circle, and we need to also be able to think about them in terms of these. Can you remember what these are called? This is a protractor, and it measures degrees. So we need to be able to think about pie charts in terms of degrees as well. Now, you might have only a half protractor like this, and hopefully you do have a protractor. You might only have a half protractor, but I'm just going to show you the full protractor. Okay, so what do the angles in a full turn sum to? I'll just turn it round here. Well, you can see here, it starts at 0, 10, 20, 30, 40, all the way round, all the way round, all the way round, and 360. Can you remember that a full turn is 360 degrees? Okay. And that is an important fact that we need to remember when we are measuring in degrees, and that's what we're going to be doing tomorrow. So instead of percentages now, I'm just going to show you some examples of pie charts involving degrees. But really, the maths is not, there's not much more to it, and I'm going to show you some examples now. Take this out of the way. Okay, so example 2, it says here is a pie chart showing the number of different coloured cars there are in a car park. There are 40 cars altogether, and these numbers that they tell you in the questions to how many there are altogether is always really important. It says there are 40 cars altogether. How many red cars are there? Well, I know that you'll be able to say that that is half. Okay, that is a fraction of that is a half quite clearly. And here, the section for blue is quite clearly a quarter. But let's just remind ourselves where we get those numbers from. Well, a half, where do we get that from in terms of degrees? Well, the half here is 180 degrees. It's a half turn out of your full turn, 360 degrees. And this simplifies to a half. That's where we get a half from. So we're basically just finding, for this question, we're finding a half of 40, which is 20. Don't know why I'm in grey there. I'll go back to a darker pen, I apologise. How many blue cars are there? Well, again, I'm sure you can see that that's a quarter, but let's just remind ourselves where that comes from in terms of degrees. This is 90 degrees out of your 360 degrees, and that simplifies to a quarter. So we're basically just asking ourselves, what's a quarter of 40? Well, a quarter of 40 is 40 divided by 4, which is 10. Here it was 40 divided by 2, which is 20. You're dividing by the denominator in this case. And how many white cars are there? Well, white is 45 degrees, which is half of your quarter. So you could just take this number and divide it by 2, but let's just remind ourselves where we get this fraction from. So it's 45 degrees out of your full turn, which is an eighth. So we're actually finding an eighth of 40 here. And an eighth is just half of a quarter, so we can just halve this number. But it's also the same as doing 40 divided by 8, which is 5. Okay, example 3. Here's a pie chart showing the number of explorations to these planets in the year 2150. 120 explorations were made altogether. Really important you pay attention to that number. How many explorations were made to Saturn? Well, Saturn, again, we can see is a quarter. And a quarter comes from the fact that it's 90 degrees out of 360. So we are finding a quarter of 120. So I'm going to do 120 divided by 4, because that's my denominator, which is 30. And finally, how many explorations were made to Venus? Well, that's an interesting angle. That's 120 out of 360, and that simplifies to a third. So we need to find a third of 120, which is 120 divided by 3, which gives me 40. Okay, that's going to be really important for the worksheet and tomorrow's lesson. Okay, finally, your worksheet. So you should now be able to do worksheet 9. So it's colouring in these sections according to what's in the table for the first couple of questions. And then you've got to explain in question number 3 what percentage is shown for each subject. Now for number 4, you are not given any percentages or any precise fractions, but it asks you for the word about, which means an approximation here down in 4D, okay? So you're just going to be looking at the pie chart and answering these questions here. But in part D, it says about how many people in the survey most often watched ITV. Well, you need to look back in this video and think what fraction is shown here by ITV. What approximate fraction? And if you've been watching this video carefully, I've given enough hints throughout for you to be able to know what rough fraction that is. And then you need to think about how many people are in the survey, which it says there. So it's that fraction of that amount. That's your hint for question 4 part D. If all of that's pretty straightforward for you, then you can have a go at these extension questions. So for question number 1, here's the extension question. If there are 50 cars in the car park, how many red cars are there? For question number 2, your extension question is, if there are 60 pupils in year 10, how many pupils have a gerbil? And for question number 3, your extension question is, if there are 120 pupils in the survey, how many chose PE as their favourite subject? So there's a few little extension questions if you have some time spare after that worksheet. So worksheet 9 now please, and then a photo of it in class notebook when you've finished would be great. Good luck!